So, yeah, Brighton win 2-1 against Liverpool, and it didn't feel like much of a surprise, I've got to say. Like, Brighton was such a good team, and they performed so well again against Liverpool. And that man, Matoma, keeps producing the goods with such an amazing, well-taken goal. Dave, Brighton are lovely to watch, aren't they? After the stuff they've gone through this season and the changes they've had, you just wouldn't know that a manager came in halfway through the season and transformed them in this way, would you?
No, and I think the manager's definitely surprised a lot of people how he's come in. He's built from obviously what Graham Potter laid with his foundations, and if anything, Brighton, especially since De Zerbi has come in, they actually look more potent going forward, which for me was probably one of their shortcomings over the last year. If anything, they've created so many chances. They don't struggle with creating chances. They dominate the ball against a lot of teams, but they just couldn't put the ball in the net. And ever since he's come into the team, you've got to give him credit because everybody's been chipping in. You look at obviously the likes of Solly March, Welbeck when he's obviously come on. The rise of obviously Evan Ferguson's been outstanding. McAllister, you obviously can't praise him enough for what he's done as well. And even necessarily, you've obviously got Caicedo as well, who we don't know obviously what the future of him is going to happen, but him managing that situation and being able to maintain some sort of positivity in the team, they just look. And I think, well, the main thing for me is Fulham have had a lot of praise this season, but if you actually look at Brighton, they've got 2 games in hand on Tottenham. They're only 5 points behind Tottenham. Yeah. They can go into 5th place if they win both of those games, and that's just crazy to say.
Yeah, it's a comfortable top 6 team in the making, it seems like, doesn't it, Brighton? And I say, not a shock that they beat Liverpool, but I mean, what's changed under De Zerbi, do you think, Myles? Because, I mean, he's got a good reputation of playing really attacking football. He's definitely brought that to Brighton so far. But how has it happened like this so soon?
I think the infrastructure at the club means that they're always prepared for change. So although they lost a manager that they clearly thought very highly of, they had their next person in place very quickly. Yeah. That seems to me like that was someone that they already had on their radar in case this kind of inevitable thing where they lost Potter happened. And that meant they were able to react really fast. And that's not a surprise because Bloom's run the club so well that we've seen this happen with the playing staff time and time again. Let's not forget that Brighton have sold for big money the majority of their star players over the last couple of years. They lost Ben White, Cucurella, Basuma, Trossard now. And a lot of these players were on no one's radar until they turned up at Brighton, shone, and then moved on for huge fees. Yeah. The good thing is they've always been replaced really well. There's talk of Caicedo going now for 70 million they've had a bid rejected for. Let's not forget that they also lost Mbwepu, for example. Like, Brighton are always prepared to deal with what happens to them. And actually, the change to De Zerbi seems really well timed because they've become so solid under Potter and become so confident on the ball, like you say, and retain possession so well that all it needed was an attacking coach to come in and fine-tune the top end of the pitch. He hasn't really had to worry about the back end because they already had that. Yeah. They already had that well developed, and that's a really nice progression. We see that quite often in football, that progressive side develop. And now they're at a point where this isn't a cup upset at all.
No.
It's a perfectly fair result. You're not even considering that. Brighton are in a position where they've got a World Cup winner in the middle of their midfield. They might lose another star player, but they've signed a new midfielder today. I think his name's Ayari. Never heard of him. I guarantee he'll be brilliant. Because I trust Brighton like that. I know that Brighton are in a place where if they've identified a talent, the likelihood is it's going to work well. Look at someone like Tariq Lamptey. Tariq Lamptey obviously played very well in this game. He sort of got his goal. I know it's been given to Dunk, but you never know with that one. He might be moving on, and Brighton are ready to cash in on him because he's kind of surplus to requirements because their investment has just been so smart this whole time. And that's just excellent to see. That's another club doing it quite organically. They've not spent big fees. They've not gone mental in the transfer market, even when they have the money too, let's be honest. Brighton, how much have Brighton brought in over the last 2 transfer windows?
Yeah, silly money. Really good.
Must be 200 million at least. And if they sell Caicedo, then how are they going to reinvest that money? They're not going to go and spank 50 million on one player. They're going to be smart with it, and it's benefiting them.
I was going to say there's shades of Leicester City and how they've been recruiting in their peak years. And that's not to say that Brighton are going to win the title anytime soon, but the amount of money they're making, it feels like a model that's sustainable. But also it must be a little bit of a shame for Brighton fans as well to see some of their favourites come and go so quickly. And the next one I think is Matoma as well. Well, yeah, Matoma's such a talent, but he costs £2.5 million.
Yeah.
And there was no eyes on him because nobody scouts that part of the world. And that's kind of what they do. They exploit parts of the world where there's no eyes on them at all. Look for some stats that really fit their kind of player profile. And lo and behold, they fit in like a glove. So, I mean, can they sustain this in this day and age? Is it something that they can do and still kind of push for like that top 6 finish, do you think?
I think you can. And I think, like you say, Leicester is a good example. They managed to do it at one point where they were selling players for big fees, but they never really spent that money. Look at how they brought in the likes of Kante and Mahrez by targeting markets that weren't being examined exactly as Brighton are doing. Long term, that might be problematic because eventually people cotton on to where you're getting these players from. I highly imagine that people will start looking for the next Moise Caicedo whilst this Caicedo is joining Arsenal, to be honest, because otherwise Brighton are just going to keep this momentum going.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they've not tried to target some slightly higher profile just to try and solidify their place. The likelihood is in the summer, Matoma and Alexis McAllister will be on the radar of every club in Europe.
Yeah.
So you don't know where Brighton go from here, but I trust them. You say like their fans will be disappointed to see their favourites go. Yeah, they will, but they'll have a new favourite in 6 months because that's the way this model's been working. And as long as Zerbi keeps this group together to a degree and keeps the spine of it fairly similar, you can regenerate it. And look at someone like Solly March. Dave mentioned him. It's a perfect example. Someone that actually, he's never really played at an elite level before. He's not someone that's necessarily always on our radar, but he's having a fantastic season. That, to me, is good coaching. That's not even just good scouting. That's developing a good, harmonious team that know how to play for each other. It's just, I think they're fantastic, Brighton. I'm really happy to see them progress. I wouldn't be surprised if they got really far in this competition, maybe even all the way.
Yeah, I think this competition and the way it's playing out as well, with so many Premier League teams dropping by the wayside, it's kind of set up for a team like Brighton to take advantage of that, isn't it? And go on a fairy tale cup run. And you imagine seeing Brighton lift the FA Cup, how good that would be for English football.